More UFO encounters. A UFO freezes the electronic systems of two Iranian military jets as they play cat and mouse when the two military jets tries to fire on the UFOs. So it's not just the US and other countries that are having, like Puerto Rico, Mexico, Canada, Britain, that are having UFO sightings and encounters with their military and other aircraft, but also Iran in this case. We also had reports from Greece, reports from Iraq. So what are these objects? There are plethora of stories out there involving beings from another world that are associated with these objects. Mainstream UFO disclosure continues to accelerate at a tremendous pace. And we have the US saying that the DoD will come out about the beginning of June, in a couple of days, to disclose some of these UFO files. And John Ratcliffe will come out and comment on those first disclosures. The US Navy has released multiple videos and pictures of unknown objects, as well as testimony from the personnel involved performing maneuvers and traveling at speeds that no known human-made piece of machinery is capable of doing. Some of them call them hyperspeed, others call them as fast as a shooting star. Now, the latest footage comes from the USS Omaha, showing spherical objects that dive into the sea. It shows spherical objects mysteriously disappearing into the ocean. The truth is, military encounters with such objects is nothing new. In fact, it's been happening for decades, and the phenomenon has been well documented. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. So there are thousands of encounters to choose from that provide a description of such events, the testimony of the personnel involved, radar tracking information, in some cases photographs and videos of the objects, and also some of these U.S. Navy pilots saying that they see these things every single day, which is a very, very strange event, every single day. There are common themes and consistencies with regards to the behavior of these objects that seem to be quite evident based on the information and the number of examples that have made their way into the public domain. One of them is the fact that these objects most of the time seem to perform evasive maneuvers to avoid our own aircraft. Another is the fact that critical electronic equipment in military jets seems to shut down when in close proximity to these objects. But it's not just military jets, it's also commercial jets. They just freeze into the sky as if they're paralyzed at 40,000 feet in the air. It's amazing. Now, this is well documented. It does not just occur with military jets, but is something that's happened at nuclear missile facilities as well. At the Malmstrom Air Force Base in March of 1967, a base that was responsible for a large amount of nuclear weapons, multiple military witnesses here saw a red glowing UFO hovering just outside the front gate. After that happened, all of the nuclear missiles shut down and went completely dead. This is not an isolated incident, and there are multiple examples. A great example of an air encounter where this happened comes from an incident that took place in 1976. Residents of Tehran, Iran, noticed a big bright object in the sky. The airport traffic controller also noticed, quote, "It was an intensely bright object that was not supposed to be there," end quote. The Iranian Air Force was contacted. At the time, they were a close ally of the United States, under the rule of the Shah of Iran, and they dispatched 2 F-4 fighter jets to check out the object. The United States took this encounter very seriously. A report of what happened was sent to multiple national security officials and U.S. President Gerald Ford, CIA Director George Bush, and National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger, among others. Both of the F-4 interceptor pilots reported seeing the object visually. It was also tracked on their airborne radar. Both planes experienced crucial instrumentation and electronics go offline at a distance of 25 miles from the object. Here's an excerpt from that report. Iranian Air Force jets and a UFO which played cat and mouse with them appeared on radar and paralyzing their weapons and electronic systems when the jets attempted to open fire on it as the F-4 approached at range of 25 nautical miles. It lost all instrumentation and communications. When the F-4 turned away from the objects and apparently was no longer a threat to it, the aircraft regained all instrumentation and communications. Another brightly lighted object came out of the original object. The second object headed straight towards the F-4. The report goes on to describe how the smaller object, after detaching from the bigger object, turned inside the arc of the F-4 itself and then regained the original object. This incident apparently lasted for several hours. This type of splitting in two, quote unquote, was also observed in an incident occurring near Aguadilla in Puerto Rico airport in April 2013. The incident was filmed and a team of analysts worked with the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. A private group of scientists, military analysts, and investigators produced a report analyzing that incident. Objects splitting into two, traveling at speeds no man-made aircraft can, performing maneuvers that no known aircraft can, and exhibiting other astonishing behaviors is again nothing new. What is most interesting about the Iran incident is that the objects seemed to know when the jets were attempting to fire on them and were able to prevent it. This is suggestive of some type of precognition, in my opinion. Well, let's remember what used to take place in the texts of ancient Greece when we're told that the Argonauts and their ship, the Argo, the people that were in that ship were all royalty and elites and well-educated. They weren't just anybody looking for a crewman job. They were princes and kings and heirs to the thrones and elite and very educated young men. And the Argo was able to read their thoughts. And in the middle of the trip, Hercules, which was one of the people on there, the ship said, I can't function properly reading Hercules' thoughts. Please get him off the ship. So in half the trip of the journey, Hercules was told to disembark the ship, the spacecraft, because the computerized ship, the spacecraft, could not stand reading the thoughts of Hercules for some odd reason. So isn't that something? So it seems that these things are able to read the minds of the humans that are in the planes that are opposite them. Isn't that strange? Now, going back to this, it's also concerning that we would attempt to fire upon an object that doesn't seem to be performing maneuvers indicative of a threat. Their behavior, no doubt, represents potential air safety issues. In my opinion, many of these encounters are indicative of curious behavior. Meanwhile, there's evidence suggesting that governments of the world have been quite interested in capturing some of these objects and have indeed been successful. The takeaway, what are these objects? There are a plethora of stories out there involving beings from another world that are associated with these objects. They come from high-ranking military personnel and civilian incidents like the one that occurred in Ariel School in Zimbabwe in 1994. Although we can't say for sure yet, that was frightening to the school children. That was really intimidating. So they were basically malevolent. Now, although we can't say for sure, it is responsible to rely on government and mainstream media to give us our perception of this topic. Should we be so naive as to believe that these entities will give us an accurate depiction of what they discover concerning these things? It's no secret that governments and mainstream media are perhaps hiding or not reporting the truth on these things. So will mainstream UFO disclosure be any different? Well, we have to be patient. We have a few days left yet, about 10 days, 2 weeks, until The first UFO disclosure comes to us from the Department of Defense, the U.S. Pentagon, and then John Radcliffe will come and comment on that information coming out to us. This was from Collective Evolution, published here under Creative Commons. This is by Arjun Walia, Collective Evolution, on Collective Spark. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support.